Hello, welcome back to another Paul Mass video. Today, let's talk a bit about the new Team Rocket Lyra dropping later tonight. Slash, I guess just SE Lyra, which is much more boring, but I mean, guys, solid story, right? Plus, that's like actually her name, so well, special costume Lyra. But anyways, yeah, as usual, we will be pulling for her when she drops later tonight. So make sure you are subscribed and notifications on, so we could, well, hopefully finish this series of seasonal units strong, right, in terms of the pulls. But anyways, let's get into this unit. Alright, so in general, I mean, there's not really too much to talk about. It's a support, right? It has, you know, pretty solid support stats, right? Good HP, good defenses, all that stuff. Speed's not very good, but outside of that, you have her kit, which is a 1 gauge mud slap, which is nice. That could debuff accuracy. Mini potions all that could heal, right? Earthquake that is not going to be super useful except for like one thing. Well, I guess two things, which we'll talk about in a bit. The trainer move, 2 uses, raises attack of all allies by 1, and then raises defenses by 3, and then gives type resistance to the user, and yeah, which is just makes her resistant to like the last attack it was hit by, which it's basically just giving her like a guard, sort of, right? So, all right. Outside that, her sync doesn't do anything, and yeah. Passives, you have Rebuff, reducing hit ground, lowers the target's ground type rebuff by 1 first time he uses attack move is successful in each battle. So that's one of the uses of having Earthquake, which is you can make, you know, making an AoE ground debuff. It is only -1, but you know, still. You have Team Mighty Sync 9, guaranteed, right? Physical move up next for your team by 1 after using a sync. Only once per battle though, unfortunately. And then you have Team Beef up 9, guaranteed chance of raising the attack of your team by 1 when hit by an attack move. So yeah, that's the basic part of her kit, right? So she's a defensive support slash tank that could heal a bit, some physical offensive buffs, right? Could debuff the opponent's accuracy, and then has ground rebuff and has like 1 physical move up next after sync, right? So yeah, as for the grid, alright, if you're wondering how many copies you want to go for, at 1 out of 5, you get like the rebuff stuff, right? You get, you know, she could tank the hits, got the basic mini potions, all that stuff. You get the 1 physical move up next for your team. So I mean, 1 out of 5 is fine, right? I'd say. 2 out of 5, she does get some nice stuff like Sterner stuff over here, which could, you know, help her tank physical moves a bit better. Not that she's bad at it, but you know. Yeah, and then you also have Natural Remedy and NPR for one of the mini potions, or one of the mini potion NPRs. And also you got Trip Up on Earthquake, Trip Up 9. And then NPR 2 on your trainer move. And some sand stuff, right? So honestly, her 2 out of 5 is pretty decent too. Her 3 out of 5, you get Focus Group 9, which makes it so that she could buff crit, First Aid, right? To you know, just extra heals, Sync Damage Guard, you know, Berserker Bunch to make her physical attack buffing be a bit faster. The second NPR on the potions, mini potions, and then Master Healer on that as well. And then you got Vigilance and Team-wise Entry 2. So yeah, so she gets some special defense over here because she's mostly physical defense, right? So yeah, obviously 3 out of 5, you got a lot of really good stuff too. So I'd say every copy of her, you know, you get some things in there, right? So yeah, if you try to pull for her and you get lucky and get some extra copies, that's nice, right? But you know, for a basic kit, I'd say 1 out of 5 is enough, right? It's just that you're missing, I guess, like the key stuff is just like crit buffs, right? Everything else is just extra. Oh, you also have free revenge at 2 out of 5 as well, right? Yeah, which is, you know, that's something there to consider as well. But yeah, you're basically just, yeah, focus group you're missing out on. And that's kind of like the big one, because like all the other stuff you could sort of remedy that somehow one way or another, right? Like Vigilance, you could just run a lucky skill on her instead. Yeah, whatever, right? So all right, so let's get into this unit's grids and lucky skills and all that stuff, right? So As for lucky skills, there's a few ways you can go for this. You could obviously always go for Vigilance, even though she has Vigilance on her grid, but you know, save you energy if you want to pick up other stuff, right? How much it cost? 7? 10. Oh, okay, wow, alright. So yeah, you could still do Vigilance if you want to save 10 energy on the grid, or you could do something like Healthy Healing. You could do Adrenaline. You could do Head Start. You could do Wise Entry too, right? Or Speedy Entry for some gauges, or just move gauge refresher. Any like the gauges stuff that could be nice. You could also do Defense Crush, which is something, right? Especially with that AOE, Earthquake. Or you can just have it on your 1 gauge Mud Slap spam. Like honestly, there's just a lot of options in terms of lucky skills for this Lyra, right? So interference immunity, blah blah blah, all that stuff, status immunity. So yeah, a lot of lucky skill options. It really just depends on what you're trying to do with it, right? So yeah, as for sync grid at 1 out of 5, pick up unbending, I guess. Mud Slap, move gauge refresh. Mud Slap accuracy, I'd say probably. Pick up all these like defensive stuff, and well, I guess that's basically all the stat nodes. Right? Okay, pick up all the stat nodes and blah. Yeah. You can pick up everything if you have enough orbs. So yeah, that's that. As for 2 out of 5, again, 2 out of 5, you do have a lot of decent stuff. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you do need the speed debuffs, you could pick up Trip Up 9, right? Although if you are picking that up, I'd recommend picking up Earthquake, Move Gauge Refresh, and Free Revenge, just because she's not a very fast unit, right? And for her to be trying to spam Earthquake, a 3 gauge move on support, right? That could be a bit tough. So yeah, also starting her stuff if you're fighting physical stages, probably don't need it. If you're not, you could still pick up the NPR over here, right? And then you go for either the NPR on the training move, or Natural Remedy if you're facing something that could really status you, or the Mud Slap, move gauge refresh, right? Those are all options that you could probably go for that last slot. Again, a lot of these are also changeable depending on what opponents you're facing, right? All right. Although I definitely wouldn't say like this NPR on the training move is like a massive deal, just because like honestly the attack buff on this is kind of like garbage. And then the defense buffs, like 2 is enough, unless they debuff your team's defenses, right? And type resistance thing, I don't really think you're gonna use it like that many times, unless you're just gonna use like the first 2 to buff defense, and then you save another one just to change type resistance if you really need it later on, which, okay, sure, I guess. All right, so yeah, 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5, again, a lot of good options over here. If you do need crit buffs, go for Focus Group up there, right? Otherwise, after that, if you didn't roll Vigilance, you could go for Vigilance, right? That's always a really solid option. If you're doing something like this, the last bit of energy, I suppose you could invest into Move Gauge Refresh on Earthquake, since if you are going for the trip up over here on Earthquake, if you're not, then yeah. Again, like support grids are just hard, right? It's just really depends on the situation, right? Really depends on the situation. What team you're running her with, right? What enemies you're facing. Like for example, if you're running her more in a gauntlet scenario, right? I'd probably just go for the potions. If the opponent status is probably Natural Remedy there as well, and go for the Free Revenge, right? Yeah, I mean, I'd rather take the potions over First Aid over here, unfortunately. And unbending, because there's a decent amount of them that could debuff defenses, right? That could be problematic. Maybe Sterner Stuff if it's a more physical gauntlet stage, right? Yeah, really depends, right? Really depends. If you're going for something quicker, like a Master Mode thing, right? Then maybe in Master Mode, probably want to go for like First Aid instead in comparison. Maybe you want the Team Wise entry too, right? If it's a more special stage. Although if it's a more special stage, you probably would just bring a special defensive support instead, right? Focus Group if you really need that. Although like 3 turns of that might be a bit tough in Master Mode, from like 0 to 3, right? So yeah, a lot of this really depends. You could also have Free Revenge there for Master Mode too, right? I mean, Free Revenge is just, the Free Revenge just really depends, right? Do you really need the gauges? Because like if you really don't need the gauges, I wouldn't really pick it up, man. Anyways, you think that'd be obvious, but sometimes it actually isn't. I mean, I do that a lot. I do that a lot myself, right? Alright, as for like the list of pros, you got obviously the ground rebuff, right? It's a pretty, should be a pretty good tank in combination with the decent stats. You got the +6 physical defense. You also have type resistance too, and then you got the potions, first aid if you want to pick that up, right? Sync damage guards, certain stuff, just a lot of defensive stuff, vigilance, right? Team-wise entry too. And then you got the speed and accuracy debuffs. You have max attack, crit, defense buffs, mini potions, right? And physical support with the extra physical move up next as well. So there's some stuff there, right? As for some of the cons, it's just a lot of really slow stuff, right? I mean, her debuffs are pretty slow, right? They're all -1, right, per use. She's an overall slow unit, right? Gauges wise, speed wise. Her attack and crit buffs are pretty slow too. I guess her crit buffs aren't like the worst, but they're not like really fast either. Her trainer move can be a bit awkward, right? Just because you want to use 2 of them right away just so you max out your physical defense. But then if you do need to change the type resistance halfway through, right? For example, if an opponent for 1 bar is mostly like one type of move and then another bar is like another type of move, or in terms of like their problematic moves kind of change. Let's say something like Latios, right, has that sort of quality to it, for example, right? I think Regirock, right, Cobalion, yeah, those kind of change. That could be again a bit problematic. And then her biggest issue is really just bad team fits, right? You can't really find too many teams where she'd just be like a top option in there. If you look at a lot of teams that she could be potentially on, there's just better options, especially those ground type teams, right? Especially those ground type teams. Yeah, it's just that's just a really unfortunate thing about the unit, right? And personally, I feel like that's probably the biggest knock on this unit too. So, anyways, to wrap it up, right? It's a support, and I feel like it's a kind of mediocre support, right? Like usually, like the big thing, you think about the support is, it's the ground rebuff, right? And then her biggest weakness is that, like, yeah, she has a ground rebuff, but she just doesn't work well with most of the good ground type units, right? Like literally, like the only like big one is like Hapu. Like, she works pretty well with Hapu. That's for sure. I guess OG May, if you want to shoehorn her into like a ground type unit, I guess, but no, not really, right? But yeah, like most of the other ground type units, you probably just prefer to run with something else. I guess Courtney like is all right with her as well, but yeah, like she's just a bad fit with a lot of ground type units, right? With Cynthia, you'd want something like Ingo instead, right? You want the extra Sandstorm. For Maxi, you probably prefer Courtney, right? Nidoking, maybe Nidoking, but like even Nidoking, I'd probably still go with Courtney. I'd either go with Courtney or I could go with Maxi, right? Both also still provide Nidoking with a lot of really good stuff, right? I mean, Courtney gives the physical defense debuffs, the ground zone, obviously, extra damage, and Groudon obviously does a lot of damage, right, as well, and then also helps provide the physical master passive buffs, right? So like I'm not even sure in terms of Nidoking, I'd really run her over those two. And yeah, there's just really aren't too many like places where she'd be a really good fit in comparison to some of the other options that you could run on these ground teams, right? So yeah, that's like her big thing, ground rebuff. So if you do take that ground rebuff away and you say, all right, well, how about we fit her into some teams that you just screw the rebuff, we're just gonna we're gonna run her like Calum Greninja, right? Or Morty Silver, Ho-Oh, like or Signusuit Chris, right? Like, don't have to run them on rain teams, don't have to run them on sun teams, don't have to run them on, whatever teams, right? Like, you could do that. You could definitely do that. I mean, I'd say she's still a nice general tank, right? But even then, right? Even then, I'd say there's just, if you take that component away, she's just an average kind of support, right? Like, she's nothing super crazy, right? Support-wise. Like, all her buffing stuff are all, like, outside of physical defense buffs, right? Like, that one's good, right? But outside of her physical defense buffs, all her buffs are kind of slow. Not super worth it, right? And, her debuffs are slow as well. And again, the other thing, right, in terms of fitting her with a lot of the other ground type units, a lot of those ground type units in the game, right? Again, Maxi, Giovanni, like Courtney, right? They're all really, really slow and, big gauge moves. And she's also very slow, right? Like, if honestly, if I were to, design a ground rebuff support, I'd hope for a ground rebuff support to be fast, good on gauges, right? So you could actually sort of like, support a dual ground output sort of team, all right? Which again, she also doesn't do either, right? And yeah, that's just another again, one of her issues. And yeah, like, again, like the rest of her support is just kind of average. It's just really just average. Like, if you just look at like some other supports, right, that you could like compare to, like, just, I don't know, what are some recent supports? Like the pound times Mallow, obviously champion beat, but like, can't compare anything. But like, something like Mallow, or even something, I don't know. Let's just look back to what was before that? We had did we had any Shauna, right? Shauna, right? I don't think, if you compare her and Shauna, right? And look, I'm personally not a huge fan of the Shauna unit, and I'd say I like this unit better, but if you put them side by side, you can't really say it's a huge like upgrade or whatever, right? And Shauna obviously has some really, really nice things that Phanphy over here doesn't do. Like, she has a lot better like buffs and stuff, right? For example. So yeah, that being said, I guess all right, so here's the deal. All things considered, I'd say probably like just because like there aren't like too many banners to really pull on that's really going on at the moment. It's maybe like a 5.6 out of 10, right? Because she's still a limited. I'd say like my rule usually is, as long as you're like a limited banner, you're gonna get at least 5.0, right? Like, there's always that collection value of a limited unit in there that would put you at like 5, but other than that, and again, she's not like terrible. It's not like she's completely useless, right? No, she's still got her stuff, right? Like the stuff that we mentioned before. But that being said, again, like, she's just, you can't really find a great spot for this unit in terms of support, right? Unfortunately. But if you are a big Hapu fan, right? Like if you just, you love Hapu, you wanna get your Hapu to be the best Hapu, like as she could be, right? This is a 10 out of 10 must pull. In fact, it's a 100 out of 10 must pull if you're a Hapu fan, right? You just gotta get that Hapu to like the absolute maximum capabilities with the with the max buff for Hapu for the multipliers. You got that Axe CD buff for Hapu's I think Sync Nuke multiplier and whatever, right? And then throw in the ground rebuff, etc. This is a top tier Hapu support, but otherwise, again, I wouldn't really recommend. So anyways, yeah, that's one, I guess. Hope you all enjoyed, guys. Think in the comments down below. Like, enjoy the video right now. For some more Pokemon content, we'll pull for later tonight, so make sure to tune in. Oh, there's, I guess, one more other big pro that I missed out on. The outfit is great. It's a fantastic outfit, which is part of the reason why I'm slightly salty that they didn't make this unit better. But yeah, if you want to pull for the outfit, 100% go for it. Very much warranted. I would love for them to give us more pro tags in these villain grunt outfits. That would be amazing. All right, so that's my main input on this. All right, so have fun. I'll see you guys.